You're now watching the Mike Missanelli podcast on the BetRivers Network.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Mike Missanelli podcast. Podcast number 166 here, sponsored by BetRivers. It's Thursday, February 29th. What does that mean? It means it's a leap day. So everybody go out there and leap. It's leap day. I don't quite understand it. I know there's some kind of sociological significance to leap day, but I don't know what it is, nor do I care. So we'll just do it on it's leap day here. And coming up is an interview with baseball great Tom Glavine. Yes, we get the Hall of Famers to come on the Mike Missanelli show. Tom Glavine. All right, maybe he's not the most popular guy in Philadelphia because he kicked the Phillies' ass for a lot of years, except for 2 times, 1993, and then, if you remember, 2007 with the Mets melting away the division with the Phillies, that team that was on to come. Now, they wound up losing to the Colorado Rockies, but you knew something great was on deck for that group of Philly players. And Tom Glavine pitched the last game of the year against the Phillies. I don't know if I want to bring that up to him. We probably will, but he's coming up in a little bit. So let's start out the Mike Missanelli podcast today on a Thursday with what we call the current. This is the lull. Let's face it. It's the lull right now. It's like a calm before the storm. Playoffs of the NBA are coming up. The NHL players are coming up. It's the NFL offseason, and the most exciting thing is the combine. And, of course, you got Philly spring training, which is where we'll start today. And I was watching them yesterday. The game was on television yesterday against the Braves, ironically enough. And a couple things stood out. Alec Boehm stood out. I'm hoping he has a big year hitting more home runs. That's what I want him to do. He's long enough to be able to get more pop. And he, to me, needs to be a 25 to 30 home run guy from the third base spot. And yesterday, he had a home run, a double versus the Braves. And the other highlight was Sir Anthony Dominguez, who's been really good in spring training. Now, that's a good sign, but as always, you got to project, because at the end of the season, he wears out somewhat. So hopefully he can carry that through an entire season. So it's not as much as what he's doing now that impresses me as whether he's going to be a consistent, reliable guy for an entire season. Now, yesterday, interestingly enough, I got to give the Phillies credit. They threw a kid a bone yesterday. The starting pitcher in yesterday's game for the Phillies was the right-hander named Tyler Phillips. He is a product of Bishop Eustace High. All these Eustace guys are popping up all over the place. He's from Lumberton, New Jersey. That's a little rural down there, Lumberton. But he went to Eustace, and he's had an interesting story because he had an injury that forced him to miss baseball for a year. He's a 26-year-old right-hander. He pitched in Reading last year, and the Phillies throw him out there to be the starting pitcher. He had his girlfriend there, his kid. I know his family was all excited. He pitched in spring training. Hopefully they were there as well. Here's the good news for Tyler Phillips. He threw 20 of his 23 pitches for strikes. The bad news is they were fairly hittable strikes. He gave up 3 hits, 2 runs, and he gave up a monster home run. And afterwards, he was interviewed by the broadcasting crew. He seems like a nice enough kid. He seems like he's kind of scared to death and intimidated. But it's a big thrill, man. He starts a game for his – and he was a monster Phillies fan. He was talking about who his favorite players were and how his dad had season tickets, was sitting in right field, and he would try to go as many games as he could with his dad. And his favorite player was J-Roll and all that kind of thing. So it was a really nice story for Tyler Phillips. Now, there is a story now with I'm going to get to a big Philly story in a second. So hold on to your britches here. The uniforms still are now a major concern. And Tony Clark, the head of the Major League Baseball Players Association, finally had to address it. And what he said yesterday is that work is being done to mitigate the players' concerns. All right, now the players' concerns are there's a multitude of them. The uniforms are called Nike Vapor Premier. They're supposed to be a dry wicking shirt. I got many dry wicking Nike shirts in my collection. This uniform is an extension of that, where it's supposed to wick off moisture better. It's a lot lighter. I don't know how much lighter a baseball uniform could be, or whether that really is any consideration at all. But that's the idea behind it. And so it's designed by Nike and it's manufactured by Fanatics. The players seem to have a problem with the following. jersey size, waist, inseam, length, and thigh fit. Other than that, the uniforms are perfect. They also know. I don't know if the players care that their name on the back is a little smaller. I think fans care about that more than the players. But anyway, this was a problem that was anticipated, as far as I can read into it, many months ago by the Phillies equipment people, where they were talking to some players and they're saying, this uniform thing is going to be a big thing for the players. In fact, that one clubhouse guy said it's going to be an S show. Now, one of the two ways to look at it, all these damn spoiled players, they got to have the perfect uniform. Well, listen, it matters. You got to feel comfortable in a uniform. If you're thinking about how it's a bad fit with your uniform, it takes that much away from your focus. And baseball is a game of focus. You don't want to feel uncomfortable. So I don't know what they're going to do. They have to remake the uniforms. They've got all these uniforms made already, like millions of dollars. What are they going to do? Give you a completely different uniform? I don't know. Maybe they will do that. The Players Association will say, yes, let's do that. Baseball will go, heck the hell. I'm not going to spend more millions of dollars because these bratty players. I don't know what's going to happen. But it's amazing that this thing is still an issue as we're now several weeks into spring training about the uniforms. All right, let's get to the real big story. And this will really solicit a bigger discussion. This is a classic sports radio talk topic. The Phillies announced today that they are discontinuing Dollar Dog Night. Now, listen, I never understood Dollar Dog Night. I never understood why that was such a lure for people to come to the ballpark, that they could buy 10 hot dogs to stuff their fat faces with just because it's $1. But let's face it, people like the Dollar Dog Night. It was kind of getting out of hand in many different ways. Number one, it was costing the Phillies and Hatfield a lot of money, right? They weren't making a profit on a dollar dog. Second of all, the lines were outrageous. Now, I fostered a plan. I actually sent it to Dave Buck, vice president of the Phillies, where I said, you do it like a drug dealer would do it on the corner. Like, if you ever watched The Wire, you give them the money, somebody gets the dog, and next person gives it to you, right? Like there should have been a system where here's the money, you give them $1, you got to bring cash. That's the thing. And I know they don't want to have cash problems anymore, so that's why they've eliminated most of the cash things. But in this particular, if you're going to have a Dollar Dog Night, you got to accommodate Dollar Dog Night. So you tell the people, okay, it's Dollar Dog Night, bring bills. It's like you're going to a strip club. Bring a lot of ones. Come to the park with a lot of ones. You give somebody $5. The next guy goes, here's $5. Boom. And the line keeps moving. To me, that was my solution. I don't know. It seems brilliant. I have these brilliant ideas every once in a while. Like the last brilliant idea I sent to the NBA was the dunk contest, where you have high school versus college versus pro. It's brilliant. And now the Dollar Dog Night. It's a foolproof system. Somebody takes the money, somebody gives you a hot dog, you get the hell out. But they didn't do that, so there's all kinds of line problems, and people are missing the game because they're in line for a freaking $1 hot dog. So they've eliminated, and then here's the third consideration. Drunk fans or dissatisfied fans for that particular game are hauling hot dogs like missiles onto the field. People can't, you can't legislate idiocy. So people were going to do that. So you got to punish now the whole fan base. No more Dollar Dog Night. They are keeping it in some semblance of form. If you buy a hot dog, you get the next one for free at full price. So here's what most people who do that, you see it in the grocery store all the time. Buy one, get one free. Here's the classic example. Thomas English muffins. They always have buy one, get one free Thomas English muffins, but they hiked the price up for the one. So one pack of Thomas English muffins has been hiked up to $6.50, and you get the other one for free. Basically, they're breaking even. So that's what they're doing here. I guarantee you they'll raise the hot dog price to like $6, and then you get the second one for free, right? It's classic. In either way, it's a defeat for the poor fan who seems to worship Dollar Dog Night. So let's get producer Darren in here on the Dollar Dog Night. Darren, How you feeling about the dollar dog night discontinuation?
It is my understanding, by the way, that it will remain $5 a hot dog, which is the current price
Ah,
now.
oh,
It is
that's nice of them.
it's a big college night. It's always a bunch of drunk college kids. I've been to those. I'm not a big. I'll eat one normally. I'm not a big hot dog guy at games. Once in a while, I'm craving one. I don't understand. I got a friend who's like half my size who will eat like 12 to 13 of them. I don't know why he
Just
must have a
because they
hollow
think they're
leg.
getting a bargain.
Yeah, I
This is the only thing.
guess.
Others think they're getting a bargain. We have to take advantage of it. I
That's
need
why
to get
college
10 in
kids
me.
go down because they got the two nickels. They got $1.380 in their pocket, and that's all they can afford.
Come on, man. So, all right, now let's get to the second part of this.
Yeah,
What is wrong with my brilliant system to sell hot
it's an
dogs?
assembly line plan basically, and it should move quicker. You could also put a limit, like 5 at a time or 10, whatever you want to do it, to help it move quicker as well with that. But I like that it's just boom, boom, boom. Assembly line keep moving.
Well, you don't even need a limit in this system. Your guy gives you a $10 bill. You gather up 10 hot dogs from a big tub of hot dogs you got. You get him on his way.
Yeah, that's a good plan.
Just bring dollars to the damn ballpark.
Yeah, and you're right though. I think they do have that cashless policy down there at the bar.
They have a cashless policy. So on this night, suspend the cashless policy and just tell them it's a strip club.
I like it. In fact, I kind of want a hot dog right now. Talking about it.
All right.
A little mustard, some onions.
Yeah, all right. So we've taken care of the two most important issues.
Yeah.
The uniforms that don't fit right on the crotch. And the dollar dog night discontinued. This is what's going on in baseball right now. You see, we're in a desperate spot. We're in limbo here at this time of the year for sports.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to your Philadelphia 76ers, who have now plummeted to sixth place, and they are 2.02 ahead of the Pacers for dropping into the seventh spot and into the play-in tournament. Now, I don't know if I ever fashioned a day this modern age with the Sixers that they would actually be in a play-in tournament. That is a regression beyond belief, and obviously it's because Embiid's no longer playing, and they're not good enough to compensate for the loss of their star players, which is really depressing to me because you're supposed to be able, if you're a good team, you're supposed to be able to weather some kind of a storm, and they can't, and they need the guy back in the lineup, which tells me a lot about their chances to actually do something in the playoffs. So let's look at where they are. If they survive, if they get into the play-in and they survive and get the seventh seed, right now they would play the Cavs in the first round or the Knicks. Now, I'm going to be honest here because there was a day when you say, I'll take that series any day. I don't believe the Sixers, even with Embiid coming back, because I can't guarantee that he's going to be back in 100% capacity, can beat the Cavs or Knicks in a 7-game series. And people say, well, Mike, they beat the Cavs twice in a row. Yeah, they did in the regular season, and one was without Donovan Mitchell. So, again, when people look at this, they go, what, they beat the Cavs? This is a 7-game series. You have to win 4 games in a series, and you're going to have to win it without home court advantage if you're coming from the rear. So, I am not optimistic that they won't be in the play-in tournament, frankly. Here's the next games up. Hornets. All right, that's a win. I think they'll win that game against the lousy Hornets. The Mavericks. The Nets win. So I got win, loss, win. The Grizzlies win. 500 so far, right? They win 2 of the next 4. And then the Pelicans. Oh, the Pelicans. Then at the Knicks. And at the Knicks in a quirky schedule, where they have to play the Knicks twice at the Garden on a Thursday and Saturday, and then at the Bucks. Loss. 4 losses. That's 2 and 6 in my book. That plummets them further down. That assures them that it will be in 7th place by the next time we talk after these games. All right, that's all I'm saying. I don't know what's going to happen. Maybe something's different. They shake up the world. They win a few of those games. They avoid the play-in. But right now, I am not feeling that they will avoid the play-in tournament, and I can't believe that. It's like at the start of the season, if you would have told me the Sixers are going to be in the play-in tournament with all the hogs of the world way down in that lower rung, I would say you're crazy. But that's the way it looks like right now. Darren, your thoughts?
Yeah, the Sixers had that quirky schedule in the beginning of the year where they played the Knicks in Philly back to back. So I guess I don't know if the NBA is doing this now. In fact, you and I were at one of those games. So I don't know if that's kind of a makeup. I've never seen that
Yeah,
before.
it's kind of
this
weird.
year.
But listen, things aren't looking up, and we really don't have. MB was at the game the other night, brought his kid, and it's all cute and everything, but he didn't really sit on the bench with the team that night, did he? I don't know, man. To me, if you're hurt and you can walk around with your kid and take accolades from people, sit on the bench with your mates. All right, let's move on here. Let's talk about the Eagles. Again, there's nothing going on except that Roseman Sirianni spoke the other day, and we watched it. We didn't really have a reaction to it, but I thought about it over the last couple of days. And Roseman kind of threw the coach under the bus when he started talking about the younger players. And one player in particular was discussed. It was Nolan Smith. And Roseman has a really interesting way of covering his ass. He drafted Nolan Smith, and he kind of like laid Sirianni out with this overall general concept that sometimes we got to trust the younger players to play. And I think he was making a pointed accusation to Sirianni for not playing Nolan Smith. How dare you not play my draft pick? You're making me look bad. And that's what I think that was all about. I don't see the Sirianni thing going well in any of that. Okay, what's going on now is the NFL Combine. I tuned in a little bit last night. There was really nothing going on last night except cameras on the players coming in. I'm strangely attracted to the NFL Combine on the NFL Network. And I'm wondering, do you watch it, Darren?
I will just check in, but I can't believe you like watch. I think it's the most worthless. Like if I was a head coach or a general manager, the only use I have for the Combine is to be able to sit down with the player and get to know them as a person. Give me a paper, a data sheet at the end of it with all their measurables. I don't care. I'm watching game tape, and I want to sit down with them and find out what kind of a person they are and see how dedicated I feel they are to being a pro football player.
Oh, listen to you, Mr. Football. Oh, Mr. Serious Football Guy. Hey, listen, I look at the Combine. I like skills competitions for professional leagues. So I look at the Combine as a kind of a skill competition. I want to see certain things from certain guys. I especially like the 40-yard dash. I especially like when linemen record really good times in the 40-yard dash. Not necessarily the skill players, because I know what they're going to run. They're going to be the highest ranked players are going to run the best. I want to see the linemen, the offensive linemen, defensive linemen, how well they run the 40-yard dash. I like that part, and I like watching receivers' hands on that quick drill where they have to catch, keep going, throw it down. That's a good measurement of hands. The best guy I ever saw in the last 5 years at the NFL Combine was CeeDee Lamb. The ball just sucked right into his hand. He was like ultra impressive. I go, that dude is going to be a player in this league. And that's why I was really sorry when they didn't take him. They wound up taking Hurts, so it makes me look silly. But they could have traded that second-round pick with their pick and gotten CeeDee Lamb. Instead, they passed over Justin Jefferson and, the rest. But I like it. Here's what I don't like, and I don't care about it. I'm sick of it. And I don't know what the appeal of it is. The Rich Eisen 40-yard dash.
I knew you were going to say that. I knew it.
Come on. Seriously? Come on. What are we doing here? Do I give a flying F about Rich Eisen running a 40-yard dash in a suit with his arms up like this?
For charity now.
I can tell that that's a guy that's never played a sport in his life. I don't want to see him run a 40-yard dash. He's a very successful commentator. I get it. I don't want to see the
somehow they
dash.
make proceeds out of it, and it all goes to charity now. But I know what you're saying.
Well, they did that after a while and that's a good thing about it. But they hadn't done that for a really long time, and I just don't want to see it anymore. I'm not interested. I don't care. All right, let's go into this other major NFL story where the Players Association actually graded organizations as far as their overall amenities in the organization. So it's a team report card that measured treatment of families, food cafeteria, nutritionist dietitian, locker room, training staff, weight room. And they gave grades for every organization in the NFL. The Eagles came out really well. They came out with the fourth highest grade in the NFL. Let's get to their grades. Okay, so for the treatment of families, they didn't come out of the gate very well because they got a C for that. C for treating families.
That surprised me.
All right. The next one they got an A with, and the A is the part where they had the food in the cafeteria. So the next one was nutrition and dietitian. They've always had kind of good acclaim for that. So they got let's see, they got a B on that. All right, let's move on. So the third category was the locker room. Locker room, they got a B minus for the locker room. I don't know what's wrong with the locker room, but they got a B minus for
renovated.
that.
I thought it was lower than that actually, because that's one of their main.
It says B minus here in the category. They got a B plus for the training room. For the training staff, they got a B. No, wait a minute. They got A minus. They got an A minus for the training staff. And then finally, for the weight room, they got an A minus. So it all comes out to be pretty good. They had the fourth best organization, according to NFLPA, and their facilities and their accommodations.
See what they gave the coach? Head coach? See his grade?
No.
A.
They gave the head coach an A?
Sirianni got an A.
Really?
Yes.
Huh. Okay, yes. So they got team travel was a C. That was 19th. Head coach A, 6th.
Interesting.
Ownership A, 7th. All right, listen, man. I just look at it as a cynical sports analyst, and the NFLPA. The players are really the ones giving the grades. I don't know how they got the grade with the head coach. I don't know who they asked for that.
They didn't like their travel setup either. The players are feeling like they're all cramped in the back of the plane while the staff's up in first class.
Team travel, C. Yeah, 19th. LL. Oh, there you go, Jeffrey. Spend some of those monies.
Number 1 on the list, Mike, Miami Dolphins. Can you guess who number 32 was?
The last in the league?
Yeah.
Arizona Cardinals?
No.
No?
The Washington, whatever they're called.
Oh, the Washington Commanders.
There you go.
The Commanders got the worst. Who was second worst? I see a lot of Fs for the Chargers.
Yeah. I got to look that up.
Chargers get like 3 Fs and 2 D pluses. They have to be near the top. Yeah. My God. Come on now. Can't have that. All right, there you go. There's the NFLPA grades on the organizations. All righty, spring training in full bloom. So let's get to the highlight of today's Mike Missanelli podcast. We'll talk some baseball with our next guest. I think he's got a pretty good resume. I'm not sure. 10-time All-Star, 2-time Cy Young, 5-time National League wins leader, and I buried the league because he's in the Hall of Fame. Of course, 1995 World Series MVP. He is the great Tom Glavine. Hello, Tom.
Hello, Mike. How you doing?
Doing good. Now, I got to say, here's the caveat. Most likely the people here in Philly will consider you a villain for obvious reasons. But we've already had Smoltz on, so he broke the ice on that. So I guess you're pretty good. And here's what Philly fans do: they respect achievement, and they certainly have to respect your achievement. So let's talk a little baseball here. I don't even know where to start with you because your career's been so amazing. But let's start with the Philly connection, because I know a lot of people that looked at this Philly crowd craziness in the playoffs, and they're going, "That's a tough place to play." But I remember, because I was in the park in 1993 when you guys played the Phillies, and that crazy team that wound up going to the World Series. And Vet Stadium was about to fly up into the crowd. What do you remember when you look at the crowds that you saw on TV today with the Phillies, and then back then when you were battling with the Phillies? Did anything come to mind?
I mean, a lot of similarities. Yeah. It's a tough place to play. Probably a few more fans at the vet than the new place, just because that's the different capacity. But I think the energy, the passion, the enthusiasm is all the same. And, it does certainly bring up memories of, for me, playing in the vet. And knowing what a difficult environment it was, and I got a chance to play in the new ballpark too, and it's loud. It's like I say, going in there as a visiting player, you're probably going to hear a bad word or two during the course of your stay. Yeah, I mean, I would definitely put it up there with certainly one of the ballparks, maybe top 5 in baseball in terms of a home crowd advantage and influence on a ball game for sure.
Who pitched against Schilling that night? Because that night was the one that
I think it was Maddox. I think it was Greg. Yeah.
Okay. So then they had to go back to Atlanta and beat you after winning that game.
No, actually, I think they beat us there in Game 6. I think, if I'm not mistaken.
All right, I just remember the Schilling game because it was pretty nuts.
Yeah, I just remember we didn't think we were going to make it back to the hotel on the bus because I thought the bus was going to get tipped over. It was
really
nuts.
They were jostling you.
Oh my God, it was unbelievable. Yes.
Wow, that's crazy. I didn't know that was happening. So I want to look back at your career because it's really a fascinating career. First of all, let's go back to the beginning. So, what's the name of the high school you went to? I always pronounce it wrong.
Billerica High School.
Billerica
Memorial High School. Yes.
And so now you have a choice of baseball and hockey, and a lot of people don't understand how good of a hockey player you were. You were taken in the 4th round of the NHL draft. You had 47 goals and 47 assists in 23 high school games. You were a sniper.
Yeah, I could score a little bit. I was a good player. I'm not going to lie. I was, and people ask me all the time, the two sports and why you went to baseball, whatever. And truth be told, I tell people this all the time, and they kind of look at me like, "Come on." I was a better hockey player at that point in time than I was a baseball player. I was not a pitcher. I was a thrower. I didn't know what I was doing on the mound. I just threw the ball as hard as I could. Sometimes I threw strikes. A typical high school game for me was, I'd probably strike out 12 and I'd walk 5. I didn't exactly have a command of what I was doing. My mechanics were terrible. But I had a good arm, and that was why I got drafted. And I think for me, truth be told, the harder decision between the two was I was going to college, and I planned on going to college. I had a scholarship to go to college and play baseball and hockey. It was more of a hockey scholarship than it was a baseball scholarship, but I was going to try and do both. And that was really the bigger question: did I want to forego a college scholarship and try baseball or not? And once the Braves got to a point where it made it worth my while financially, and I knew if it didn't work out, I could go back and pay for my own college and take that burden off my dad's shoulders. Then it became, all right, at the end of the day, there's pros and cons in both sports. But I'm a left-handed pitcher, and that gives me an advantage in baseball that I don't have in hockey, so I better try and use that.
That was a well-thought-out decision.
It turned out all right.
No, for a young kid, that's an unbelievable heavy decision to make. Where would you have gone to college? What was the college?
I was going to go to what is now UMass Lowell, so Hockey East, good baseball program. The problem for me was, it's so different than it is today. But hockey schools got to see me through my senior year. Baseball schools only saw me through my junior year. Back then you weren't committing to a school as a 6th grader or a 7th grader. You were actually, committing as a senior. So, hockey schools got to see me further along than the baseball schools did. And I had a number of hockey schools up in Boston that didn't have baseball programs back then. BC recruited me pretty heavily. Today that'd be a great school to go to. Great hockey program, great baseball program. But back then they didn't have baseball. So it was really narrowed down to me, like I said, trying to go somewhere where I could get a good education and try and play both sports. And, UMass Lowell at the time had just joined Hockey East. They were, I think, really, really good Division II baseball team. So that was what I was going to try and do.
You must have pitched in a lot of cold weather in Mass.
A lot.
High school
Yes.
days, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I know. I played baseball at Penn State. I know how cold it can be in those when you're trying to play in the spring. It's just not warming up. So, so you make the decision. You get to the big leagues pretty quick. I mean, at 21, you're in the big leagues, and it didn't go well right away. So, and all of a sudden it clicked for you. So, take me through that transition of, and then all of a sudden, boom, 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 you went 20 games 3 years in a row. So what turned it around for you?
It was kind of a phase. I mean, my first year, like you said, didn't go well. I mean, I lost 17 games, and I guess the silver lining for me there was I just kept reminding myself the Braves must like something that I'm doing to send me out there to lose 17 games, quite honestly, and that was kind of the way I looked at it. So I knew there was something there that they liked. I knew that we weren't a good team. And it was about me showing progress from start to start. And over time I did that. The second half of that year I pitched a lot better statistically. Didn't necessarily win any more games because we still weren't any good, but I was pitching better. So that was the key. I went home that winter and realized when I threw strikes, I pitched well. When I didn't, I didn't. So I went home that winter and focused almost exclusively on fastball command. That's all I worked on, was trying to get better with my fastball command. I came back the next year and I had a good year. Won 14 games my second year in the big leagues, and then had a little regression again in my third year. I went, I think, 10-12 my third year, and it became obvious to me that I needed a secondary pitch, primarily a changeup. At that stage of the game, I was still pretty much a fastball, curveball guy, and my changeup was very inconsistent. So it became apparent more so that I really needed to come up with a changeup and add to my repertoire. So I was a little less easy to get boxed in.
You came up with it pretty good. The circle change, like a death knell pitch for hitters.
Well, yeah, and the great thing about it was I came up with it by mistake. I was shagging outfield. I was shagging BP in the outfield in spring training one day, and a ball rolled to me, and it settled in my hand where it was my grip was essentially my middle finger and my ring finger were on the ball, and my index finger. So essentially, I shifted my fastball over from index finger, middle finger to middle finger, ring finger. And I thought, man, that feels pretty good in my hand, and I had a bullpen the next day. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to try this. And I threw it the next day in the bullpen. I was like, man, I think I'm onto something here, because it was the kind of, the thing that I would struggle with my circle change, which so many guys struggle with, was arm speed. And I didn't have the confidence in it to have consistent arm speed. And when I picked that new changeup grip up and I threw it in the bullpen, I was like, man, I can throw this thing as hard as I want, and it's just not coming out of my hand. So now I had to figure out how to get it around the strike zone and get consistent with it. And that took a while. But I think that was the key for me in the 91 season, was with that pitch. Now I had an out pitch, but now I had a pitch that if I had my B game or my C game, I could keep myself in the game and give myself a chance to win. That was the pitch that kind of held me together when I didn't have my best stuff. And it's like, I say, listen, you go out there with your best stuff, you should win. Okay, but what are you going to do the other 20 games out of the year where you kind of have your B stuff or your C stuff? Before I had that changeup when I was younger, I couldn't win those games. I didn't know how to win those games. And once I developed my changeup, those were games that now became winnable for me, and that's when things really took off.
Pinpoint control, and so you win 20-11, 20-8, and then 93 is the big year that everybody talks about here with the Phillies. 22-6, 3.20, and lose the Cy Young to Maddox.
Yeah,
what's that about? What? Seriously?
Yeah, I mean, listen, you're not going to find too many guys that win 22 games and don't win a Cy Young award. But you look at Greg's numbers that year were still pretty stupid. Innings pitched, strikeouts to walks, ERA, all that stuff was his numbers were all better than mine there. I just was the benefactor of winning some more games somehow. But listen, I'm not going to say it wasn't disappointing, but at least it was our teammate, so that was a good thing.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I'm imagining you give him like a sly eye when that came down.
Of course, absolutely.
Come on, man. And you guys still have that rivalry now on the golf course. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But when you look at all your decisions, I mean, 305 wins, and you have to stay in games for a really long time, and you just don't see that anymore. The game has changed so much as far as how they breed pitchers coming up to remind you, give us your best stuff, throw 96, torque it, and give us, and the bullpen will take over. What did you think of that transition? Yeah, I mean, you lasted a long time. You lasted pitching as many innings as you did. You're pitching at 40 years old at a pretty high level, and these guys are burning out really early.
I mean, I don't love it. It's probably the part of the game, I guess, that I like the least. It aggravates me, it frustrates me, whatever word you want to call it, right? And I am pretty quick to say I don't blame the pitchers. That's the way these guys are being brought up today. They're being brought up on velocity, velocity, velocity. I see it I saw it with my son when he was in high school and college. Nobody, if you weren't throwing mid 90s, nobody cared. Nobody looked at you. These kids know what it takes to get drafted, and it's all about velocity. That's why you hear so many high school kids, talk about, oh, what was my velo or what was it? It's like, who cares what your velo was? But it matters. I mean, that's they put so much of a premium on velo now that's what everybody focuses on. But it's like I say to people all the time. I can look at this generation and say, oh, these guys are soft. They can't pitch into the seventh inning. They can't whatever. The generation before me, Nolan Ryan and Bob Gibson and those guys, they thought my generation was soft. So it goes across all generations. But I think the more frustrating part is that like I said, these guys are just being brought up on that's what's expected, right? You hear on broadcasts all the time, but we got to change pitchers. The guy can't go through the lineup for the third time. Well, why can't he? Who said he can't? And the problem is that's what these guys buy into now, because now they know, well, they're not going to let me flip the lineup for a third time. So I'm just going to let it eat for 5 innings, throw it as hard as I can. And there's no, like we used to do a little bit. There's no reserve tank for the 7th inning or the 8th inning, right? Your tank is emptied in the 5th. Like I said, I don't love it, but I think that more than anything else is the reason why we'll never see another 300-game winner, because guys, A, aren't pitching long enough, but B, they're not staying in games long enough to win them. I don't know how many games I won in the 7th inning or the 8th inning. I know it was a bunch, but these guys today aren't being given that opportunity pretty much ever.
56 complete games. 4,413 innings pitched. How did you keep your arm healthy? What was your routine?
Cortisone shots. I mean, listen, I say that kiddingly, but it was true sometimes. Listen, I was lucky. I had some issues that I had to deal with, but thank God never required surgery. 91, 92, I was good. 90 after the 92 season, back-to-back, deep playoff runs. I remember I started throwing that winter and I was like, uh-oh, something's not right. And, sure enough, I had an MRI and I had a partial thickness tear in my rotator cuff. And they said, listen, you can either pitch if you can deal with the pain, or you can have surgery and you're going to miss the year. And I was like, well, screw it. Let's see if I can pitch, and I did. That year I did. I got a lot of cortisone shots to kind of get me through the hump. But it was one of those things where I had to learn how to pitch over again a little bit because the pain decreased my velocity. So I was pitching 82, 84 with a 78 mile an hour changeup and, having to throw it where I wanted to. And then, they told me it'd be about 18 months before you fully got back to normal. And I'll be damned, they were pretty spot on. And then I had to learn to pitch all over again because now I started throwing 88, 89 again, and the ball wasn't sinking the same as it did at 82, 84, and I had to learn how to locate it again. So, I had some struggles in 94 kind of trying to reincorporate my velocity and all those things. But, I was like I said, I think that was the extent of it. I'd have some flare-ups with my bicep tendon, my rotator cuff from time to time, but usually it was, some Advil or a cortisone shot that would kind of put me back over the hump, and I never had to have anything fixed until I got done, thank God.
How's your shoulder now? Can you?
Not bad. It's good. I had it fixed when I got done. I had to have my rotator cuff reattached and some staples and bridges and all that in there. So, I wasn't necessarily keen on doing it, but I remember, our orthopedic at the time was a dear friend of mine. He said, listen, the longer you wait, the harder your rehab is going to be. And I was like, all right, so I took about a year off and then did it. And it was about a 9-month to a year rehab, but it was perfect timing because my kids then were at those ages where they were starting to play travel ball and do all that stuff. So I could go out and play catch. I could throw BP all day long.
Yeah.
And it didn't hurt anymore. So it was great.
Yeah. Because I know you had kids and you probably want to throw with them. And so, well, that's good that you feel that way. There are a couple things I want to address that are, I saw a video recently of the time you were throwing at Dale Murphy, who was the Philly at the time, and it's the last guy you want to throw at, but the circumstances were such that you had to do it. So take me through that. You threw like 4 balls behind him, really, and no chance to hit him, and he probably knew what was going on. But I thought that was really interesting. How did you perceive that moment?
Yeah, so we had the deal where we had the brawl in Atlanta the week before. We turned around, came to Philly. And we were all convinced that, Friday night in Philly that Otis was going to get hit and that was going to be the end of it.
Otis Nixon.
So Friday night comes and goes. Nothing happens. Saturday, nothing happens. And we're like, okay, well, nothing's going to happen. Well, sure enough, I think Roger McDowell came in the 8th inning and Otis led off. And first pitch, he hit Otis. I want to say he hit him in the head, if I remember it correctly. I mean, he smoked him.
Yeah.
And I was sitting on the bench, and I see Bobby come walking down the bench, sits down next to me, and he says, you got to hit the first guy. And I was like, Bobby, it's Murph. Can I hit the second guy? He's like, no, you got to hit Murph. I was like, damn, okay. So, looking back on it, I didn't handle it well. I should have hit him and should have been done with it. But, listen, he was a guy that when I got to Atlanta, he was everything. And still is in a lot of ways. He was the only reason people were coming to games when I first got to Atlanta. And, he took me under his wing and did a lot of things for me and was great to me. So I was like, man, it's like I was hitting my dad or my big brother,
Well, so when you didn't hit him, was that good enough for Bobby?
No, it was bad. It turned out, it was bad. Like I said, if I had one thing to do, I'd say one thing, maybe that would be on the list. I'd probably have a couple things I'd do over, but that would definitely be at the top of my list. I threw the first pitch thinking, all right, just hit him and be done with it. And when I missed, he looked at me like, huh, okay. And then, when you watch the video, every pitch I threw after that, like he was almost out of the batter's box before I let go of the ball. So, I was trying to chase him a little bit. And Bob Davidson came out, I think, after the second pitch. He's like, hey, if you do that again, I have to throw you out. I was like, I understand, Bob. I know. So, that was it. And, it caused a rift between me and Otis a little bit, and I get it. But it was just, but I'll tell you what, I didn't hit Murph, but you would be shocked at the amount of fan mail I got in Atlanta from people that were just pissed off at me. Like, who the hell do you think you are
Really?
Hitting Dale Murphy? I'm getting all these how dare you hit Dale Murphy? And I'm thinking to myself, I didn't hit him. I missed him. So, but it was, it didn't go the way it should have gone, but Murph was good about it.
That's outstanding. I got to talk about you were there with the Deion Sanders craziness.
Yep.
Of playing the football game and in baseball. Like, what was the fanfare like in the clubhouse over that stuff?
Honestly, it wasn't bad. I think, because we all loved Deion. Deion was a great teammate. When he was in the clubhouse with us and it was just the guys, good teammate. He'd give you the shirt off his back. I think Deion was next to Muhammad Ali in terms of self-marketing. He knew what it was. When that red light went on a camera, it wasn't Dion anymore. It was prime time, and he knew that, and he just did a phenomenal job marketing himself. And so there was two different personas, and we didn't see the prime time in the clubhouse. He was just one of the guys. So he was a lot of fun to be around, and I think we all, we knew what it was he was doing, and how special a thing it was. I mean, listen, it's quite frankly, not many of us in the locker room, if any of us, were good enough to go play two sports. So, the fact that he was, I think we understood that. Now, it was crazy at times, obviously, especially for us new to the playoffs and trying to navigate our way through some of those things. And we have all the fanfare of him going to play a football game, and then, jets, planes, trains, and automobiles getting to the stadium to play a baseball game later that day. I mean, it was a little bit nuts, but again, I think we understood the specialness, so to speak, of what he was.
It's funny you say he was a good teammate, because if he wasn't, that probably would not be looked at very well in a clubhouse. No,
it would have been too big of a distraction for sure.
Yeah. All right, let's move on, because I'm interested. I know you play a lot of Philly golf courses when you get a chance, and you did when you were still playing. What is your favorite golf course? And you guys play together. You Smoltz and Maddox play a lot together. Who's the best player? And what courses did you enjoy here?
Smoltz is the best player. I'm trying to gain ground on him. Back in those days, it was Greg and I were pretty even, and John was. He was better than us. I don't know if I'd say significantly, but he was better than us.
So he giving you strokes? Is he?
Yeah, he would give us strokes. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, a lot of times, Greg. A lot of times, Greg and I would play him best ball. So it'd be me and Greg's best ball against John, and it. Yeah, I mean, it would. There were times where the gambling got a little bit stupid, and we had to rein it in a little bit, because I guess to a point where it's like, hey, we got $1,000 on the line here on this hole, John, and your ball's sitting on a root. I don't care if you break your wrist, you got to hit it. So. And I'm like, what are we doing? This is kind of stupid. So
all three of you are competitive as hell. So I can imagine what's going on in those games.
For sure. But we realized we had to tone it down a little bit, and we did. But man, I tell you what, like early on when I didn't really necessarily love some of the bigger cities, and I don't know that I loved Philadelphia initially, but once I started playing golf, man, that Philadelphia was circled on the schedule all the time, because you knew going in, you're going to play Pine Valley, you're going to play Marion, you're going to play maybe Aronimink, however you say it. I mean, there's so many good golf courses in Philadelphia that it was a trip that you look forward to. And, we made some good friends there on the golf courses. So, it was fun, because, we'd have to leave those guys tickets to the game, but then they were rooting for the Phillies, so it was a little bit of an odd dynamic. We just told them they had to keep it down a little bit if they were in the Braves family section.
Did you ever play White Marsh Valley? That's where I play.
I don't think I played that. No.
Okay, it's right down the street from Philly Cricket, which you may have played.
Okay, Philly Cricket Club's a good one too. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to end it with this one because you leave the Braves. I don't know. Was it bitter when you left the Braves? I mean, you were looking for more years than they were willing to give you. I might have been insulted by that. And so you signed 4 years with the Mets. Like, take me through that moment, and then you have a great season in 2007 for the Mets.
It was one of those things where, look, I wanted to stay in Atlanta. I assumed I was going to stay in Atlanta. And when negotiations started, it was kind of like, this might not be as easy as I thought it was going to be. And, I think it became a lot of things, I started the whole process telling the Braves I wanted a 3-year deal, and they didn't want to do that. And, essentially told me to go shop myself. And I did. When I came back, and I had, more than 3 years from the Phillies and the Mets, and I had more money from the Phillies and the Mets. I went back to the Braves. I said, listen, I'm not asking you to match anything anybody offered me. I want what I asked for originally, which was 3 years and $30 million. And, they kept telling me you're never going to get that. And when I had it from two teams, I said, listen, I'm not asking you to match it. Just, I want what I asked for initially. And they just, They didn't want to do it. I don't know why. I don't know what it was. But it definitely got to a place where it was personal. And, then it became, okay, well, I'm clearly not going to stay here. And it was down to the Mets and the Phillies. And I really liked the people with the Phillies at the time. I loved Dave Montgomery, good guy and liked the people that were there. But, honestly, inevitably what sold me was I was, being in New York, living in Connecticut, I was 2 hours closer to my mom and dad than I would have been in Philadelphia. And, they were getting older. I was getting at the end of my career. So, they were able to come down all the time and watch me. And so that was the big part of it. But it was tough. I mean, playing in New York is hard. I'm not going to lie. I mean, that first year was tough. And then you learn kind of how to deal with it. And we got better and teams got better. And it turned out to be a really fun experience.
Yeah, so it was a Phillies loss because they were an up-and-coming team. And so now let's get to 2007. You guys look like you have the pennant locked up, and you start melting down. And here come this young Phillies team. They're on the kind of the on-deck circle to win. And they send you out the last game that you guys need to win it. And they send you out. Were you on short rest?
No, I think I was normal. Yeah, I was normal. I was not very good at the time, and I knew it. I mean, I was praying like hell that we were going to lock that thing up before we got to a game like that. And as I was saying earlier, there's a few things I'd like to do over in my career. That would be one of them, is that game. But, yeah, I mean, it was just, we had a lot of things go wrong in September. Didn't play well, lost some games that we should have won. And, it was a kind of perfect storm. It all came down to that game. And after I won my 300th game that year, I want to say my last two starts going before that game were not good. I mean, I wasn't throwing the ball good. I wasn't comfortable on the mound, and I knew it. And it was just bad timing. Inevitably, every season you go through, for me, except for maybe one, the 98 year, there's always a stretch of time of 4 or 5 starts where you don't feel right. And you're trying to find something. You're trying to fix something. You're just trying to survive knowing that you're going to come out on the other end. Unfortunately for me, it was that stretch. And, I knew going into that last game, I mean, I was not throwing the ball well. I had my bullpen, and the whole time walking from the bullpen, I'm just thinking to myself, dear God, I hope something clicks. I hope I figure something, because it was bad. I mean, it was just, I had no feel. I had no command. I had no confidence in what I was doing. And it showed. I can tell you that.
Yeah, and of course the Phillies, that was a springboard for them. They get smoked by Colorado in the playoffs, but then they became the team that they were. And full circle, it comes now with the Braves and the Phillies. 2 years in a row, the Braves have gone in as the favorite in that series. 2 years ago in a row, they go out. I still don't know how they just seem to collapse in those two situations, especially in Philadelphia. So and they're still favored this year. They're still good. So, what do you see with the Braves and what do you see with the Phillies right now?
I think it's just one of those things where the Phillies, for whatever reason, have been a tough matchup for the Braves, particularly in a short series like that. And I think in particular because of their starting pitching. They can run 3 guys out there that can dominate. And I think that's always the key in a postseason, right? I mean, I think these last couple of years with the Braves teams, they're structured very similar to some of the teams I played on, in the sense that over 162 games, they're just going to wear you down, and they're just going to beat teams, right? But if you get into a playoff series, now you're getting against some teams that can match you a little bit. I didn't think for a second that the Phillies offense was going to do what it was in that series, but I did think that the pitching was going to make it tough on the Braves. Like, the Braves are an offensive juggernaut all year long, and they were obviously a really good team. But you look at that going into a series like that against the quality of starting pitching they're going to face. I didn't expect the Braves to go in and even do what Philly ended up doing. I just thought the pitching is too good. They might score 4 or 5 runs a game or something like that, but it's going to be a hard-fought series. So, I think that's what happens. Once you get into those short series like that, some of the advantages you have over 162 games kind of go out the window a little bit. And I just think the Phillies are a team that, for whatever reason, has been a really tough matchup for the Braves. And I think all of us who had watched the Braves all year long going into the postseason, that the Philly was the one team I think we looked at as that's the team we're going to have to worry about.
Yeah, you start going 0 for early in a series, and then you start squeezing a little bit. That's what I think happened.
Oh, for sure.
Years. Listen, Tom, thanks so much for being a part of the Mike Missanelli podcast. We really appreciate it. Very enlightening, very enjoyable conversation. And maybe we can do this down the road, okay?
You know where to find me. I'll be happy to do it.
All right, thank you. Tom Glavine, everybody. Oh, thank you so much to Tom Glavine, who joined us. Now we have Smoltz, we have Glavine. I guess we need Maddox next, and then we'll throw in Steve Avery.
I'm working on Maddox.
Yeah, all right. Steve Avery will be down the road. But hope you enjoyed a conversation with a Hall of Fame pitcher who also was drafted to be a hockey player and probably could have been a professional hockey player in the Bruins organization. You can reach me at Mike at MikeMiss.com if you want to email me, and also check me out on Twitter at MikeMiss25. And if you're interested in a nice children's book, The Adventures of Shima the Shebas on Amazon.com. I wrote it. I had a great illustrator named Alex Lee. It's about my dog, and it's about growing up, and it translates very well to children growing up. If you're a 3-year-old kid, your parents can read it to you. If you just start to learn to read, maybe at 4 or 5, you can read it yourself. And 20% of the proceeds go to animal shelters, which is a big thing of mine. I really appreciate the work the animal shelters do. So if you're interested in that would be excellent. You're helping out a great cause. And our parting shot today, on March 18th, we will present you with a one-on-one interview with Jake Tapper of CNN. He's a local Philly guy. I'm excited to get him. I've been a fan of his for a really long time. And it comes from, in our last podcast, when I mentioned I recommended a TV show that he's doing right now on Sunday nights called The United States of Scandal, where he's going through all these political scandals that we have all lived through. We all remember them. When you see the show, you go, oh, I remember that. The John Edwards scandal, the governor of Illinois, Blogovich, or whatever the heck his name was, and how these guys hit their downfall. So it's a really good show. And I happened to mention it, and the CNN PR people got in touch with me and said, are you interested in having Jake on your podcast? Like, damn right I am. And we'll talk Philly sports and other things. So that's coming up. So put that on your calendar for March 18th. That's going to be a lot of fun. All right.
Jake's dad, by the way, was my wife's pediatrician.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah. And her brother and sister.
That's crazy.
I got to ask him about it. We got to talk about that.
All right.
Well, I would.
Everybody have a great rest of the day. It's the sun's out, but it is chilly. I was going to play golf Saturday for the first time since I've had my knee situation, and it's going to rain, 80% chance of rain. So I don't know.
It's going to warm up again next week, but it's like
Sunday's
a week
supposed to
of
be a
rain.
nice day. You might be able to get
day.
out on Sunday. All right. Have a great week, everybody. Thanks for listening to the Mike Missanelli podcast. It's brought to us by BetRivers. Don't forget to place your bets nightly on BetRivers like I do, even if like a little bit. The good thing about BetRivers, you can bet $5 if you want to, and you're not going to lose your ass. All right. Again, I'll all this week dedicated to Steve Fredericks with the snappy close. For Darren, I'm Mike. See ya.